what is it they say? And growing up in North Carolina, living in North Carolina, if you want the weather to change, just wait 15 minutes.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's
you'll
right.
Get something different.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to Behind the Lines. This is the podcast where we give you a closer look at kind of behind the scenes and what it takes to keep the power on for our folks. I'm Connie Tucker, and this is James Taylor. We're the communications team, and we're your co-hosts for today. So as we head into summer, talking about the rain and the weather here in North Carolina, we're also heading into peak thunderstorm season, which is kind of our topic for today. Summer storms can bring winds, rain. We talked earlier about then the ground gets saturated and then you have trees that might fall. But there's a lot of things that impact power when we have all these storms in the summer. And that's kind of before we even get into like hurricane season and that kind of thing. We're just kind of talking about run-of-the-mill thunderstorms. But today we want to take kind of a behind-the-scenes look of what it takes to keep the power on and to get the power back on during those storms if we do have an outage. And so we appreciate you guys being here.
Glad to be here.
No better way to kind of kick off what Connie's talking about than two people who are heavily involved. We're going to look at from the dispatch side, which Angela, you're involved in, and then Chase, the operations line worker side. So super excited to hear both your thoughts and kind of, as Connie said, that behind the scenes and talk about what goes on before the power goes out and ultimately when it does go out. Angela, you've been with the co-op for, hard to believe, almost, it'll be 27 years this year.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
and
been
so
a minute.
your journey here at the co-op, you've been involved on IT side, metering, and member services. So you have a very broad view of a lot of things that the co-op does. We actually had a conversation with two members of your IT group a couple months ago talking about some of the great things you're doing on the IT side. So looking forward to hearing what you have to say on the outage dispatching side. And then Chase, you have been at the co-op for 5 years now, but you had many years on the utility contractor side before coming to the co-op. So many years of experience on operations and utility line construction and getting the power back on. So worked several major storms.
A few of them.
That's right. Knock on wood. Well, I don't know where wood, if that's real wood, but we haven't had any major storms here at the co-op in a few years. But we've had plenty of storms that bring outages with it. But I know on the contractor side, restoration on following major hurricanes. And so looking forward to hearing what both of you have, kind of the insights you have on the outage side. So let's kick things off. Angela, I want to start with you. What does, talk a little bit about your role. What does a typical day look like for you?
Yeah. So typical day, hopefully there's no outages and we're just cruising along, right? Doing our normal stuff, which for me looks like managing people most of the time, right? So as you mentioned, I have the IT member service and dispatch group there. And so we're just doing our normal grind, right? Answering the phone calls, making sure all of our systems are running. And on the dispatch side, there's a great team of people behind me there. And so when there's no outages, they're dispatching service orders to Chase's team and making sure that flow is working well. And also answering, the call of our members when they call in with, different needs or whatever, they answer the phone calls. So that's the normal day to day. That's what it looks like.
Chase, what about you? Is there a normal? I guess Angela alluded to that. There might not be a normal day, but what would a normal day look like?
They far and in between sometimes. Normal day for me would be getting the crews ready, making sure we got everybody here, and getting the crews together and figuring out who we got to work with that day, and then keeping the trucks up on the operations side, and making sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing in the back. It's mainly what I do every day, and sometimes it's exciting, sometimes it's boring.
Sometimes boring is good.
Yeah, I enjoy boring most
I like
days.
the boring days.
Well, on those normal days, as we're thinking about preparing for summer storm season, so before the storm comes, before we have a thunderstorm, there's still a lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes to get us prepared and for us to stay prepared. So what does storm preparedness look like? Like what does, dispatch or IT or even member services, or what do they all do kind of thinking ahead to ramp up maybe if we have a bad storm on the horizon? Like what would we do to prepare for that? And I'll start with you, Angela.
Yeah, so we actually have an emergency response plan, and that's part of my duty is to keep that updated yearly. Usually myself, Eddie, and Terry Collins will sit down and update that yearly depending on what needs. It doesn't typically change a lot, right? Unless somebody changes roles or we had a drill and found out there was a glaring hole somewhere, we go in and fix that, move somebody in that place. But that drives a lot of our storm preparedness, right? You can go back to that plan and it can kind of help you get going. When we had the threat of the ice back in the winter, one of the things that we did then was make sure all of our computers are up to date, make sure we have the latest member file in all of our outage software, right? So when somebody calls in, we have the right phone numbers, those kind of things, just to make sure. Those things should download every night and life should be good. But we put our eyes on them and make double sure in those kind of instances that has happened. So that's always the things that we do. But there again, we like to say we're always prepared. Right. The very last thing we do is go get our cots out and put them in our offices. Mine's still there, right, from the ice storm stuff, because you never know. We've all spent some nights sleeping here when things like that happen. But that's...
Well, I think sometimes, you plan for those situations. And when you plan, then if there is uncertainty or, anxiety, everybody gets, anxious and all that. But you have that to refer back to. So you're not trying to remember everything. You're not trying to anticipate everything. It's all planned out ahead of time. The scenarios have been thought through, and every time we go through one of those, you just get a little bit better, And so I think that gives everybody a peace of mind, I would think.
Absolutely. Yeah. It does. It makes it easy because that's created in the quiet times, right? When you don't have that pressure of the storm or the power's actually out, we have the time to think through it and do it the right way. So
yeah. Chase, what does it look like for you to get, if you know there's a storm coming, to get your crews and equipment ready?
A lot of times the day before we'll try to come in early. If we know a storm's going to hit the day before, and we try to get extra material on truck sleeves, squeeze on, just stuff that normally gets tore up during the storms. If trees fall, extra wire on trucks. Make sure our trucks are full of fuel. That way we ain't stopping, while stuff's out. And, just trying to get the guys ready and let them know that, some stuff's coming. And that trying to make sure that we got enough help to do the work when it gets here.
Right.
And that's mainly what we try to do. And then you really don't know until it gets here. But we'll just try to assess how bad we think it's going to be.
Right.
And try to prepare the best we can.
Preparing the best we can. I know, mentioned, from an organization standpoint, I want to highlight two things. You meant, being prepared and having a plan. And then you mentioned getting extra help and crews in. That's a big thing. Obviously, we have crews here at the co-op, but depending on the magnitude, right, we might have to make some calls around the state, southeast, and have extra crews come in. But, for a major storm, one of the things, we plan for hotel rooms. There's some things that people might not think about that we do leading up to it, but hotel rooms are important. So saying if we're bringing all these crews in, if it's going to be multiple days, they're going to need somewhere to stay. So the plan has coordination for, okay, this individual is going to make sure we have hotel rooms coordinated, food, just to keep everyone moving, to keep, if we're going to be working nonstop, making sure that everyone is fed, because as you mentioned, restaurants might not be open, grocery stores might, depending on the severity of the situation. So that's a lot of details from, the emergency response plan coordination. And then also, from your side, you mentioned making sure the materials, and there's a lot that goes into preparing for if the storm may happen, because sometimes you're predicting the weather a little bit too. They're calling for a major hurricane, and then it takes that right-hand turn. We're prepared either way. So let's slightly shift gears. So, we talked about being prepared. So we're prepared. Major hurricane. Could be 7 o'clock on a Wednesday evening in July. Thunderstorm comes through, takes the power out. Outages start happening. Our phones start buzzing. It's like, we got 1,000 members out from a little bit of wind that comes in. So, Angela, I'll start with you again. Phone starts buzzing. Outages come through. What happens on your side.
Yeah. So I want to talk just a second about the phone buzzing, right? So just so everybody knows, we do have outage alerts here that alert key staff and operations so that we do know, right, that there's something going on. When we're away from this building and not, in tune with everything, it's going to let us know pretty quickly. At 7 o'clock on a Wednesday, though, we have staff here through 9 o'clock. So our staff kicks into gear, whoever our dispatcher is that night, and they're evaluating the outages that have come in, and then they're reaching out to whoever Chase has on call that night, and then they go out on the scene and figure out what's going on. And then if they determine, based on the number of outages we have, that they need extra help, we start calling in our guys. And I'm taking your thunder, so I'm going to stop here. I'm not going to do that. But we coordinate heavily with them on those kind of things. And here's what I've got, here's what I'm seeing. And it's funny, you can see when you have those thunderstorms roll across our system, you can see where it starts in Chatham County, then it's going to hit that edge of Moore County, Lee County, and Harnett County. And so once it hits that Harnett County area, we're good mostly, right? We know kind of what we're dealing with. So then we have a clear picture, and it's literally the meters are calling in and telling us that the power's out. And so they're little red dots. If you can picture any kind of Google map, they're just little red dots at everybody's home that their power goes out. So it's great as a dispatcher, because I've been doing this for a long time, and before, when it was literally a spreadsheet to look at that was printing out on a screen, and then we had a dot matrix printer that printed it out and turned a light bulb on in our bullpen area, which is our customer service area. We've come a long way since
It's hard to imagine.
I cannot imagine going back to that. And I worked Fran in '96. I was an intern here, and I thought back to that when I was preparing for this talk today, and I'm thinking, gosh, if we had to do that, we were literally printing off things in stacks of paper.
Wow.
And I don't ever want to go back to that. So we've come a long way, y'all. We do have a very mature outage program that we're pretty proud of. But that would be my Wednesday at 7 o'clock, James. That's what would happen. Everybody would kick in and do their part.
So obviously, follow-up question for you. Obviously, things have changed a lot since coming off the real printer and the lighting up. So how has communication changed? So obviously, dispatchers, okay, the outages start, they know what to do. But then we have to make decisions. Okay, do we need to do X or Y? How do you, coordinating between the different departments, like between, obviously you have outage dispatching and member services and IT. Talk to us a little bit about communicating between the different groups, if and when. We might not always need it, but sometimes like, okay, well, we need some different.
Yeah, it's funny. They all kind of get those alerts too. So most of the time, those communications, they're going to ping you before you even need them. And I love that about our team, right? They're, hey, can I help? What's going on? Do you need? And so I really, really love that about the team. But usually when we have those type outages, the dispatcher that's in there, the real eyes in there, is going to be the person that we're leaning on to go, hey, are you okay? Do you need an extra dispatcher? And Dolores and her group do amazing work doing that. And so then they're going to reach out to myself, Dolores, or whoever else is saying, hey, I'll come in and help. On the IT side, we had an instance where our outage map went down, 3 weeks ago, a month ago?
Yeah.
And IT staff on it, right? Once we realize what we're going on, everybody jumps in and they're happy to help, because it's technology, and sometimes it is going to give you that little hiccup. So that's the communication. Most of the time they're pinging us before, and they're, I love that. I love that everybody's involved, whether they're actually part of putting those lines up or they're that back end support group. They're going to jump in and help out.
So let's shift from dispatch to the field now. The line works out in the field, which if we start having outages, you're getting the same alerts and you're already on the phone, coordinate different things. Dispatch reaching out to you. So, what does that look like from your side?
A lot of times, if they need more help, our on-call guys will call me and ask me to call somebody else in, or if we got a broke pole, I might have to call a whole crew in versus just another service truck. And we communicate a lot, and a lot of times before the guys go home, be like, hey, I'm gonna be around if you need me, call me. We're very lucky with that people want to work, and don't just go home and forget about you. And but that's mainly, what we do is, they'll call me, they let me know, and if I see a big outage, I might reach out to them and check on them, make sure they're all right. And they even know, they might have been out of the truck and not even got the message that 5 more outages come in, I try to check on them as much as I can, and we do good. We try to work together the best we can.
Highlight something you mentioned on-call crew. So, we always have crews that are ready, because the reality is a squirrel is going to get into a transformer. There's always going to be outages that are happening, even outside of storms. But you have that on-call crew that's going to be ready to respond. And what does that look like? You also mentioned checking on them. Say, hey, do you need anything? What does that look like the communication between you and them? Because they're out in the field. Obviously their priority, their mindset is, I've got this broken pole in front of me, and so. But obviously, then you come in and or coordinate and get some extra help and different things like that.
Yeah, they'll get, most of the time they'll let you know what size pole it was, what material was on the pole. So they'll call me, and then I'll call whoever I can get a hold of and tell them what they need to load up. And and a lot of times I'll go out there with them, and but mostly on the phone, as far as communications back and forth. And we normally got 2 guys on call at a time, but like I say, everybody likes to come in and help. We've got real lucky with that. There has been times it was hard to find help, and we got a good group of guys in the back right now that are willing to work and come in on storms, and especially these pop-up thunderstorms that we are going to start having here. You just never know when they're going to come about. And we do good with that.
One of the challenges, I guess I'm going to take you back before you were the line superintendent, which now you kind of involved in a lot of different outages. But one of the bigger challenges, going back to it might not so much 7 o'clock, but let's say it's midnight on a Wednesday night. Obviously everyone's going home, they're with their families, asleep. On-call crews they're waking up pretty frequently, but outside of the on-call crew, everyone's at home trying to get some rest and get ready for the next day. Thunderstorm comes through. Talk to us about, from the lineman side, that unexpected, being ready for that unexpected call, in the middle of the night. Because I imagine that's a challenge as well. A delay in getting the power back on is we've got to get people in as well.
Yeah, it takes time. You got to get up and get dressed. You ain't just at home sitting there
right.
dressed and ready. But yeah, it could be wearing on you. It really can. Waking up in the middle of the night not expecting to, and working the next day with 2 hours of sleep because you come in. But it's just as something you got to do, though. If you decide this is what you want to do in life, there's going to be times you're out in the middle of the night. Nobody want to be out of power in the middle of the night and have to get up and reset their alarm clocks in the morning. But it's something we do face a lot, and it's interesting.
I think it's too. I think I have been here 2 years now, and the electric utility world is new to me. The communications and public relations and all of that is not, but doing it for an electric utility is new for me. And so it's been really fascinating for me to watch how we're a pretty small organization when you think about it. We run really lean, and everybody is bought in. Mm-hmm. Everybody is part of the team. Everybody is, and just like you mentioned, even when they don't have to be, when they're not on call, because we do have an on-call team for operations and IT and dispatch, and but everybody else is also kind of got that little ear ready and listening and is so willing to jump in. Mm-hmm. And from a communication standpoint, I'm manning our Facebook page, or James is, and we're starting to see those outages climb, and we're starting to get people who are asking questions and wanting to know what's going on and making sure that we know. A lot of times they want to make sure we know. Mm-hmm. And I'm just always so thankful for the crews that are out and that are relaying information back so that we have something to share, and learning what's going on through dispatch. It just feels like such a organized machine that is taking care of business, and everybody's willing to jump in. And I just think that's really, it's been so apparent to me over this past couple of years how well that happens. And one thing I did want to point out from your comment that, we have the folks that are on call and they work, but then we have, you have the rotations set up. So, there are limits. They're not going to work, a week straight with no sleep. Mm-hmm. You've got those safeguards built in, because you're going to have those when you have storms that go multiple days. Mm-hmm. But from a member perspective, let's kind of shift and think about from a member's perspective for a minute. Losing power is frustrating, whether it's the middle of the night or the middle of the day. it's just something we take for granted. We want it on all the time. But what do you wish that members better understood about what's happening kind of behind the scenes during an outage? If you've got the floor, you've got their attention, what do you wish that they knew, especially during an active storm situation? Angela, I'll start with you. Like, what do you wish that they knew?
I think it goes back, and I know y'all post it a couple times a year, but how the restoration actually happens, right? Because when we're looking at that dispatch map, none of us are looking at it going, hey, mom's out of power, I'm sending somebody there, right? It's very strategic in how we go about it. We're not going to send his guys on a wild goose chase, because Chase is going to come in and not be very happy with me about that, right? We start from the substation out, because you have to start where the power begins. And so that is a lot of our strategy when we're sending his crews out. We're starting there and moving out and then down the lines. And it's, lots of times it will be, larger outages. As they come in, we're going to attack those, because that usually is a main line or something major that we have to knock out. But that's the process every time, right? That's our strategy. And so I hope everyone understands that we're not just out here willy-nilly picking the next. There is a strategy behind it, and that's how we do it every time. And that has worked well for us, I think. It helps us get the power back on as quickly and safely as possible. And everybody goes home at the end of the night, hopefully,
And also, I think people forget how big our service territory is. So you can't have a crew running from Siler City to Cameron and then back to Siler City. That's not efficient at all. It doesn't make any sense.
And I think the other thing is, I mentioned the meters earlier. Our meters do have the ability to tell us when they're out. And so we lean heavily on that technology. Please call, please get the updates. Make sure we have your phone number so you get all of our texting, those kind of things, because that's important. That's our way of communicating with you. But those meters are what we lean into the majority of the time, because members can call in about their parents' power or somebody down the road, or doing the right thing for their loved ones. But that meter is going to put us right on the location that's out, and we love that.
Right.
So.
Chase, is there anything you'd add? Like anything you wish from, like when you've been out in the field and you're interacting with members, and what are the things you wish they knew?
This is a very dangerous job, and there's a lot of steps we got to take to make sure we go home safe at the end of the night. And it takes time to get power back on. You just can't snap your fingers and it happens. Most time, you fixing something. And if you got to ground and test and make sure, that something ain't going to happen to one of us, and, while we're up there working. And that's a lot of our communication with them. We thought to have 2 or 3 crews on one line. That's the reason we call in, to let them know we're heating the line up before we ever do. There's a lot of steps to keep us safe that we got to take, and it just takes time.
And also, I think, you mentioned it earlier, middle of the night, you wake up, you get the call, you have to get dressed, get here, get your truck, get your equipment, go figure out what's going on. But then you get there, and maybe it's just a regular, it's not a storm we were preparing for weeks in advance. This is just a pop-up thunderstorm, but there's a broken pole, or there's a car accident and there's a pole that's broken. Well, that requires additional supplies and equipment that they have to.
Another crew to get called, and they have to get their clothes on and come in too. It does. A pole is probably one of our most time consuming. If something if that breaks, then we sure got to call in more help, because the 2 guys on call can't do it by themselves. And a lot of times, if especially a pop-up thunderstorm, they liable to leave, and we, and go get another outage while they're coming in, to get material and stuff. Our other crew is, and it just, like I said, it takes time to be safe. It takes time.
Right.
I love one thing you said there, and you mentioned it several times: safety. I mean, that's what our priority is. And Angela, you mentioned as quickly and safely as possible. Safety is paramount. As Chase mentioned, it's a dangerous job, and getting the power back on. That's why sometimes, a car accident, broken pole, you have to approach it slowly, or else someone could get hurt really bad. And, staying from that member perspective, we've talked about how the co-op we're preparing, talked about how we're putting safety first, making sure we're ready to respond. But from the member perspective, not only us, we make we work hard to make sure our members understand. We put out, from the communication side, storm safety messages, electrical safety, a lot of safety geared messages. But leading up to a storm, we're ready and prepared. What about from the community side? So like us back home with our families, we take our co-op hat off, and we also have families at home that we're kind of getting them geared up and ready for the storm. What should people keep in mind before a storm comes in, from a preparation standpoint? Start with you.
Yeah. I have 2 daughters that recently had babies, and so they're on their own now, right? They're married and moved out, and so I'm always preaching to them about this, right? Do you have your flashlights? You got enough water? Do you have milk for the babies? You got some ice for the cooler to put the milk in if it goes out, right? Do you know where you can go? Those kind of things. Who's got a generator, house you can go to? But be prepared that it's not going to be, a day or a night or whatever on those. Hopefully with this, the garden variety thunderstorms, it's out for a few hours and you're back to normal. But in the case that it's not, have the things that you deem necessary, whatever that is. And for them and me right now, it's everything for the small children, right? I want to make sure those babies are okay. Right. But from the member standpoint, same thing. Whatever is important in your life that you need to make sure is taken care of, whether it's, aging parents or something that you need at home medically, make sure you have those things, some kind of provision for that, a backup for that, so that you're not in a bind when things like that happen, but enough rations to get you through. Again, hopefully garden variety thunderstorms, this is not an issue, but in that, hurricane season's here, and in those prolonged outages, it's a little more thinking through it, everything you got to have, so.
What about you, Chase? What do you think?
Hopefully, talking about just summer storms, hopefully just need some batteries for your flashlight, and just so you can get around the house. And like Angela said, if you got babies, you might want to prepare for that. But, a lot of times, hopefully we don't have a storm where you're out 2 or 3 days like a hurricane, just for thunderstorms. But it's better to be prepared than not prepared.
And we have a very strong reliability, 99.9%. So, one thing we always push out, generators. We fully support and recommend getting generators. A lot of people like to get generators when the storm's coming in. I think Lowe's and the Harbor Freight, and they sell out of generators real quick, right? And so one thing to always keep in mind is, make sure they're installed properly. From your perspective, Chase, they can backfeed onto the lines. Safety is critical, and make sure they're installed correctly. If you're going to get a generator, would be my input into all that.
Yeah, you don't want it backfeeding on the line and hurting somebody. And there's steps for us to take that we're supposed to prevent that from happening to us. But stuff is missed. And I recommend doing it the correct way, as far as hooking generators up, and not using a dead man cable or nothing.
And also I was thinking about, when you've got crews out middle of the night in the dark trying to work, there's always, people who might come upon your group or your crew, and they want to get out, and some people just want to be helpful, but it's not always helpful. And so, I think we always talk about, stay away from, give you guys space to work. I mean, what would you, I know that probably happens.
Yeah, I just wouldn't walk up on an active work site because there's a lot going on. We're lifting heavy things with them trucks, and there's stuff can fall or be thrown and not knowed. Yeah. And a lot of times we don't see them until they're right on top of us. I'd recommend staying away, until you get somebody's attention. If you need to talk to somebody, we'll have one of our crew leads talk to you. They'll walk away for a second to talk and let you know what we got going on. Yeah. But I don't recommend ever coming into the work zone just in case.
And I always treat a down power line as active.
Yes.
And
just don't ever touch a hot power or a power line on the ground.
Yeah. Well, we really appreciate Angela and Chase you being with us today and sharing kind of what goes into storm preparation. We've just entered storm season for the summer. We had a few this weekend, and I'm sure we'll have a few more. I think we've got some in the forecast for today, maybe. And a couple of other episodes I'll pitch. We talked early on, episode 2, we had a couple of linemen on talking about restoring power. And so if our viewers are interested, they can go back to episode 2. We also had our engineering, our director of engineering here for episode 7, talking about reliability and some of the things that they can do from an engineering side to help keep the power on. So if that's something that interests you as a viewer to listen to more on this topic, we have a couple more episodes. But I really love the fact that we can kind of give that behind the scenes of what it takes, and I appreciate your expertise and sharing that. And hopefully, it gives the members a little bit more of an understanding of what it takes to keep, and the teamwork that goes into keeping the lights on. It's not just one person that's doing that, for sure.
You're exactly right. And my final comment will be, as storm season approaches, you mentioned hurricane season is right around the corner. We're always prepared. That's something, the preparation never really goes away. We have storms all the time, so sometimes we have to get a little more geared up if they start talking, major hurricane or world-ending ice storm that thankfully missed us. We kick it into ultra high gear, but we're always prepared. And when our members are in the dark, our families are probably in the dark as well. And so just know that we're here working to get the lights back on as quickly and safely as possible, and highlight, you mentioned team effort, and it really is, from the dispatch side to the operations side to the entire team here. When the outages are piling up, everyone's going out and doing something to work for our members. It's all about the members, making sure that we first keep our team safe, then get the power back on for our members. And when it does happen, as you, Angela, mentioned, we are aware. We have the metering system lets us know that everyone's out, and we're doing whatever we can to get everyone back on as quickly and safely as possible. But to echo again what Connie said, thank you to you both. You both are experts in your field, and been in the industry for many years, and you have a lot of experience, and thank you for taking the time to chat and give some of that behind the scenes look at what goes on. So we're looking forward to more conversations with you both in the future.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And so signing off from Behind the Lines, as storm season is upon us, stay safe, stay prepared out there.